So what's the problem with this code here? The problem is that we have quite some duplication. For example here, where we save the to-do. This is essentially the same code as down here for the node. We're just executing it on a different type of value, on a to-do instead of a node. Still, it would be nice if we could add a function here, save data, could be a generic name, that accepts either a to-do or a node and then essentially executes this code. But without interfaces, we can't write such a function, because the data that we want to save needs a type, and that type can be to-do, so from the to-do package, or it can be node, from the node package. But it can't be both. But we need it for both here because I want to be able to call this one single function no matter if I plan to save a node or a to-do. And that's where an interface can help us. So therefore, I will create a new interface. And you can create it anywhere you want in your code file. Here, I'll do it above the main function, right below the imports. And an interface is created with help of the type keyword. So the same type keyword we already used for creating a struct, we also use it for creating interfaces. Next, after this type keyword, you need to assign a name to your interface. And here I'll choose Saver, and I'll get back to why I'm using this name in a second. And here, for the moment, we can actually use a lowercase starting character, since at the moment I only want to use it here. After this name, you add the interface keyword to tell Go that you're creating a type of type interface. Keep in mind that with structs, we used struct after this name. Now it's interface. And an interface in Go and in most programming languages that have this feature is essentially a contract, you could say. A contract that guarantees that a certain value, typically a struct, has a certain method. For example, here in this interface, I could say that I want to guarantee that whichever struct implements this interface, so whichever struct signs this contract, you could say, has a save method with an uppercase S so that we can call it anywhere. A save method which returns an error because things can go wrong. Now this might look a bit strange here, because this method or function doesn't have a function body. I'm not adding a function body here because you can't in an interface. Because interfaces are not about defining the logic of a method, but instead they simply define that a certain method exists, that it's there, and what its name is, and what its return values are. In addition, an interface can also define that a method accepts certain types of values as input, as parameters. For example, let's say an int and a string. You don't need to give these inputs here names, though you can, because it's really only the types that matter here. Because this line of code and this overall interface would, for example, say that any struct that signs this contract, that adheres to this interface, must have a save method that takes an int and a string and returns an error. Now, my save method here, on to-do for example, does not take any inputs, but does return an error. Therefore, since I plan on connecting this to-do struct, just like the node struct, with this interface, I'll get rid of these parameters, because my structs with their save method won't take any inputs on that save method. And that's therefore the finished interface, the finished contract, which defines which method of which shape, you could say, should exist on a certain type. Now, back to the name here, I chose Saver because there is a convention in Go that if you build an interface that defines only one method, and you could have more methods, you can add as many method signatures here as you want. But if you have an interface that requires only one method, then your interface name is that method name plus ER at the end. It's not a must-do, but it is a common convention, and I'm following it here. So that's how we can create an interface. How can we now use it, though?